So how is our region responding? On the issue of open space, we've had some wins recently. In 2018, the city of Hendersonville, a neighborhood grassroots effort through a nonprofit and TDEC partnered together to conserve and enhance 35 acres of Beatty Farm. Mayor Brown and the city of Gallatin purchased 70 acres in their community to preserve public green space until the end of time. Williamson County was a leader ahead of many other counties in our region that are now following suit and rethinking their local land use policy and zoning ordinances to make sure that we were protecting the rural countryside and not allowing it to turn into endless degrees of subdivisions that are built in areas without the appropriate infrastructure. So we've had wins at the local level. We've also had significant effort by organizations, both public and private, to prioritize our landscape for conservation. And so we're getting a clearer picture of what those sacred cows are. And many resource agencies and communities and private landowners are taking action to purchase or land bank that land for future generations. On the transportation front, in 2021, the area mayors who serve on the Nashville Area NPO Transportation Policy Board adopted a $10.5 billion 25-year plan that anticipates all the federal funds that we expect to get out of Congress over the next 25 years and allocates that money to specific projects across Middle Tennessee. This is available in an interactive map and database online if you're interested in knowing what our priorities for investment are with those funds. But one of the things that we continue to be confronted with is the fact that that plan, as much as $10.5 billion sounds like a lot of money, the equivalent plans for Austin, Atlanta, and Denver show that we're being out-invested when it comes to transportation by a tune of 2 to 1 compared to the Austin region, 3 to 1 compared to Atlanta, and 6 to 1 compared to Denver. And the missing ingredient in these financial plans doesn't tend to be the federal formula funds that flow to communities based on population and other metrics. It tends to be the local skin in the game. It's the local dedicated funding to support transportation that really elevates your opportunities to solve the problem. That local skin in the game also taps into additional federal funds that are held in DC for competition. It's difficult to compete for those discretionary dollars if you don't have local skin in the game and can ensure that you can operate and maintain the system that you're building with those capital dollars. Another thing that we're confronted with is that even with the implementation of our 25-year plan, this is not the most popular slide to show, but we're actually going to make congestion worse. Right, the idea of induced demand. So much of our investment is going into expanding the roadway system, which induces demand. So the overall performance of our traveling and congestion will actually get 12% worse than it was otherwise projected to be in the year 2045. And that isn't meant to undermine the investments that we're making. Those investments are being made for good reason. But the idea is that if you continue to expand highways, it's going to solve some of your objectives, but it will still induce demand. Y'all are familiar with why did that road that was planned for the last 20 years open at congestion? Because the supply is there and it's going to be used. And so one of the things that we're beginning to realize is that we have to diversify the choices that people had to get around so they're not held hostage by the congestion that is inevitable for a growing and successful regional economy. Solid waste. I mentioned this is an issue of concern for area mayors. More than 70% have told us as staff that they're willing to sit down and talk about opportunities for regional collaboration to include the potential for a regional solid waste authority to provide for cooperative purchasing and regional policy making and shared investment into that infrastructure that we all will ultimately use over time. Back in 2017-18, we adopted the region's first master plan for solid waste that sort of a three-legged stool here to improve the consumer experience, to find strategies to reduce, reuse, and recycle, and to think about solid waste and the truly integrated system that it is across Middle Tennessee. GNRC board last year, about a year and a half ago, created a strike force of public and private sector leaders to begin to work together to confront this issue. I know there's a lot of activity in the legislature now as well, attention from the General Assembly to offer some assistance for Middle Tennessee, which is really just an indicator of what's to come for the rest of the state. So how can you get involved? One, you can volunteer with the Greater Nashville Regional Council, gnrc.org/volunteers. You would be surprised about the opportunities that are made available to give back to your community and Middle Tennessee as a whole. You can get involved in Cumberland Region Tomorrow, which is a great opportunity for members of the public and the private sector to collaborate with each other to influence public policies that ultimately shape growth and development patterns. You can also, if you live in Rutherford County, get engaged in Plan Rutherford. There's a booth out in the hall that is being staffed by Doug DeMasi, the Rutherford County Planning Director, to allow you to help shape the future of Rutherford County through its comprehensive planning process that will yield a plan that would be presented to the Planning Commission for consideration a little bit later this year. And then finally, I guess I'll just leave you, with the thought that I think it's really important, and so do you all in this room, to always be thinking regionally while we're acting locally to solve these challenges. And then the real question is, how can we work together to ensure that that inevitability of change is used to improve quality of life? And I think the only way to do that, the only way to not leave change to chance is to work together to proactively manage the growth and development that we expect to come our way over the next 20 to 25 years. So with that, David, I will turn it back to you.